Ferrari 296. That was until the previous owner crashed it, and then I bought it in hopes to rebuild it. But along with all this damage, the car doesn't even start. Matt Armstrong spent $24,000 on a battery, and the car still would not start. After months rebuilding a wrecked Ferrari 296 GTB with genuine parts, everything should have worked. It did not. When Matt went back to Ferrari for help, they agreed, but only on a condition he could not possibly meet. That is when this stopped looking like a mistake and started raising serious questions. So is this just bad luck or something much bigger? Matt bought the 296 GTB as a wreck. The car had been taken to Cyprus, driven hard with every driver aid switched off, and put into a wall at speed. The local Ferrari dealership assessed the damage, gave the owner a repair quote that was essentially a refusal, and then told him that getting a 296 this badly broken through official channels was not something they were prepared to take on. Matt heard about the car and bought it. When it arrived, the dashboard was showing a single fault: hybrid system failure. Go to the dealer. Matt logged it and started stripping the car down. The physical damage was extensive. Over the following months, he tracked down genuine second-hand Ferrari body panels, welded structural sections back into their correct positions, and worked to the paintwork in stages. Everything was filmed. The car was being brought back correctly, one section at a time, entirely on camera. Through Ferrari's official parts network, he placed orders for genuine 296 challenge components, the same hardware Ferrari used in their own factory racing program. The 296 Challenge is Ferrari's dedicated one-make racing car with the same engine, different specifications, built for circuit use without the road car's hybrid architecture. The orders were accepted through official channels, and the components arrived. He began converting the GTB into a road-legal race specification machine. Ferrari flagged the chassis number. Their part department sent a message back. Every component they produce needs to go to the correct vehicle. Challenge parts did not match the GTB's registered specification, and Ferrari canceled all remaining orders immediately. The parts already installed on the car stayed exactly where they were. Matt was now committed to a race kit built with no authorized path to complete it. The hybrid fault from day one was still unresolved, and it needed to be dealt with before any conversion work could move forward. The crash damage pointed toward the battery as the most likely source of the hybrid fault, a reasonable diagnosis given the impact the car had absorbed. He purchased a brand new Ferrari hybrid battery, close to $24,000 apart, had it fitted correctly, and ran the startup sequence. The car did not start. Diagnostics traced the fault into the high-voltage electrical network. It was not a broken component, but a persistent code that returned the moment it was cleared, as though the car was waiting for a signal that had never come. That signal existed inside Ferrari's own dealer tools, accessible only through their authorized dealer network. Matt had no access to those tools, and Ferrari was not extending it. He contacted Ferrari with the full situation. Their response came with a condition: take the car to a certified body shop for a formal inspection first, and then they would consider whether to authorize help. The car could not pass a standard body shop inspection in its current state. The race kit, some of it sourced through Ferrari's own official network before supply was cut, made the car non-compliant. The procedures required to properly account for those modifications were held inside Ferrari's authorized service network, the same network Matt was trying to access. Every path ran directly back to Ferrari. They had built the loop, and they held the only exit. As of filming, the car sat in the workshop, physically complete, mechanically rebuilt, completely unable to start. $100,000 purchase, $24,000 spent on a single battery, months of documented work, and a car that would not move an inch. Matt had documented Ferrari's closed loop on camera. What Ferrari had not planned for was who was holding it. Matt never needed a manufacturer's cooperation. That had always been the issue. Every creator operating inside the supercar content space worked within a system that the brands themselves had designed. Launch events, curated access, loan cars, agreed filming windows. The entire arrangement ran on one condition: the creator needed the manufacturer. Remove that dependency and the relationship collapsed immediately. Matt's model ran the other direction. He bought the cars manufacturers had already walked away from and documented exactly what they were made of once the launch music stopped. The warranty expired, and no official representative was watching. He rebuilt a Ferrari 812 Superfast from nothing and handed the finished car to his father. He pulled an Aston Martin DBX out of a flood. He took a totaled Porsche GT3 RS and brought it back. He restored a Lamborghini Revuelto, one of the most electronically complex hypercars ever produced, from a damaged write-off to a fully running machine. 6 million people had subscribed because nothing in his output was staged and nothing was hidden. When something went wrong, the camera stayed on. When a manufacturer made a decision that affected the build, that decision went into the video, too. Ferrari had no meaningful issue with the 812 rebuild. V12 conventional architecture, no proprietary software dependencies, no startup authorization sequence, no manufacturer-controlled diagnostic layer. The car worked. The build reflected well on the engineering, and the story had a clean ending. The 296 GTB was an entirely different situation. The 296 ran on a hybrid system built around proprietary software that the car needed to operate. The startup required a digital authorization signal generated by Ferrari's own diagnostic tools that existed only inside their authorized dealer network. A full rebuild of that car, documented honestly and in public by a creator with 6 million subscribers and a track record showing every uncomfortable detail, had the potential to put something in front of a very large audience that Ferrari had never publicly stated. That the car's operability was conditional on the manufacturer's ongoing cooperation under terms the buyer was never shown at the point of sale. Ferrari had seen the 812 content. They knew that when something went wrong in his workshop, the full sequence went out publicly. Buying the 296 meant pointing that approach directly at a car that was structurally dependent on manufacturer cooperation in ways the 812 had never been. Matt bought the car regardless and kept the camera running. When Ferrari's decision started producing footage, he kept filming through those, too. The build that had started as a straightforward restoration had turned into something more significant, not because of anything Matt chose, but because of what Ferrari's responses to it revealed. The 296 GTB was not just mechanically and electrically complex. It had been designed in a way that gave the manufacturer ongoing control over whether a sold car continued to operate. Understanding how that system was built and why it existed required going underneath the car and into the engineering decisions that had been made before a single one was delivered. The fault inside Matt's 296 GTB was not a design accident. It was a direct consequence of how the car had been deliberately engineered to operate. Modern high-performance hybrid cars carry a software layer running underneath every mechanical component. The hardware is physical and can be replaced by anyone with the right parts and the right skills. The code controlling those components is manufacturer-owned and built to block access from outside the official network. The hybrid system required a specific authorization signal from Ferrari's own tools before the car would start. Without that signal, the car stayed dead regardless of condition of every physical component inside it. A high-voltage hybrid battery at this performance level carries genuine calibration requirements, and a startup authorization sequence that requires factory-level tooling has real engineering justifications. In a conventional car, a fault follows a straightforward path. Identify the problem, source the correct part, and fix it. Competence and access to parts are sufficient. The path does not require anyone's permission. In a car built around manufacturer-controlled authorization, the path runs directly to manufacturer at every stage. Competence and parts access are not enough. Approval is a requirement, and approval can be withheld. This gap had been building across the automotive industry for years before Matt's project made it visible to a general audience. The Automotive Service Association and the Society of Collision Repair Specialists have been tracking it and actively pushing the Safe Repair Act through Congress. Legislation designed to guarantee independent repair facilities the same diagnostic access that authorized dealer networks held as standard. Ferrari's Industry Association held a seat in the debate over what those rules would look like. The legislation had not passed. The system Matt was experiencing was still fully in place. What Matt's footage gave the problem was a specific, credible face. A real car, a documented amount of money spent, a builder with a genuine track record, blocked not by poor workmanship, but by an authorization system operating precisely as its manufacturer had designed it to operate. The catch: 22 he had landed in was a feature. The loop was a system working correctly from Ferrari's side. Every exit point in that loop required the same thing: Ferrari's cooperation. And Ferrari's cooperation was exactly what they were declining to extend. Matt documented all of it: the blocked orders, the battery that made no difference, the code that returned every time it was cleared, the inspection condition that Ferrari's own decisions had made impossible to meet, time-stamped and filmed in front of an audience large enough that the car industry was paying attention. Before the 296 GTB story became public, Matt had already walked directly into the same system at a different manufacturer, one with an even more aggressive version of the same playbook. Before the 296 GTB project had reached its most difficult stages, Matt already bought a wrecked Bugatti Chiron per Sport. His first move had been to try the official route. He called Bugatti, and the calls went unanswered for weeks. When he eventually got a response, the position was immediate. Parts would not be released for installation outside an authorized facility, and all service work had to be carried out inside the Bugatti network. Technically, Bugatti could not legally refuse to sell parts to a registered owner. Parts could be purchased by a registered owner, but they had to be fitted at an authorized Bugatti facility and could not leave the Bugatti network under any other arrangement. An owner wanting to do their own repair or have it done by a third party would find the parts technically available and practically unreachable. Matt called multiple Bugatti branches. One ended the call the moment he introduced himself. He rebuilt the Chiron without their involvement. He found the torque specifications he needed independently, identified suitable replacement materials for damaged components, sourced a compatible starter motor from an unrelated vehicle at a fraction of what any manufacturer-supplied alternative would have cost, and completed the rebuild on camera without a single page of official documentation. Then, while Matt was still in Florida working on the Chiron, a message came through from his tattoo artist, who knew the previous owner about a repossessed Bugatti Veyron. Only 450 were ever produced, and he had 20 minutes to commit. The car arrived carrying multiple simultaneous problems. It would not shift into gear. An engine misfire was running in one cylinder. Coolant warning lights were active on the dashboard. Fluid was leaking near the radiators. Matt tried Bugatti one more time before starting independent work. The result was the same as every previous attempt. His team plugged in diagnostic tools, and the scanner returned 30 active fault codes. After clearing and rescanning, the transmission and engine warnings remained present. Today, we're about to attempt what Bugatti think is impossible without being able to buy parts to repair this Bugatti. It seemed like an impossible rebuild. One cylinder was showing no signal at all. The gearbox pump was cycling, running briefly, failing to build sufficient pressure, then cutting out. The resolution came through Ricky, a former Audi UK development engineer, who had built a specialist supercar workshop. He connected to the Veyron systems remotely from his own workshop and traced the root cause inside a single diagnostic session: 2 burnt fuses. The car's previous owner had pushed too much current through the electrical system during undocumented work, melting 2 fuses directly into the fuse box. Those 2 fuses controlled the secondary air pump and the gearbox pump simultaneously. Matt had them replaced, the pump pressurized, the gearbox engaged, and the car moved for the first time since he had owned it. Not a 300,000-pound gearbox replacement, not an authorized facility. A remote call from a specialist willing to cooperate, and 2 fuses. 2 manufacturers. 2 entirely different cars with entirely different faults. One identical structural outcome. A registered owner with a legal title block from fully operating a machine they had purchased because a manufacturer had built their service network to require their involvement at every step. One manufacturer doing this is a story. 2 manufacturers running the same playbook is a system. And the people who have been buying the 296 GTB for reasons that had nothing to do with the car itself were about to find out exactly what that system had cost them in real money. Buying a Ferrari 296 GTB was like booking the worst table in a restaurant. Not because anyone wanted that table, but because being seen there kept the right people aware you were a regular. Ferrari does not just sell cars. It sells access. The cars that carry genuine long-term value are not available to anyone who simply shows up and writes a check. Access to those cars is rationed, and the ration is earned through demonstrated loyalty by what the brand is currently offering. Spend consistently and stay in good standing with the right dealerships. When the genuinely desirable cars become available, your name might be on the list. The 296 GTB was that spend for most of the creators who built the loudest content around that launch. The turbocharged V6 hybrid was not what the Ferrari world had been waiting for. The allocation position it represented was. The car was insurance, a strategic position dressed in carbon fiber and delivered with a full delivery day production. The thumbnails matched what the algorithm required. The content served the strategy, and the purchase made sense for a while. Mark had gone completely in. He did not buy a 296 alongside his existing collection. He restructured the entire collection around it. He sold off his fleet, cleared the decks, and made the Ferrari the centerpiece. When he later disclosed selling for under $200,000, that was not a number delivered with any pride. That was 6 figures of real loss, stated in front of his audience with nowhere to put it. A 2022 296 GTB purchased new for $378,000, sold at auction in 2025 for $260,000 with 1,269 miles on the clock. That worked out to $93 in depreciation for every single mile driven. In the UK, a car with under 300 miles on it was losing more than £45,000 against its list price. Across the broader European market, values dropped 19% through 2025 alone with no floor yet established. In that same period, the Ferrari Pista Spider rose by 33%. Low mileage examples cross 1 million. The Pista was older, naturally aspirated, and built without a hybrid battery or a manufacturer-controlled startup sequence. The market was not withdrawing confidence from Ferrari as a brand. It was repricing the 296 GTB specifically. Damon and Dave from Daily Driven Exotics have owned Bugatti Veyrons, Lamborghini Aventadors, and machinery most people will never see in person. They live directly inside the world where a 296 GTB made every obvious argument. Content machine, status vehicle, business asset, allocation signal. And they never bought one. And while the buyers who had entered for strategic reasons sat underwater in the used market, Ferrari had already moved on. The 296 Speciale 868 combined horsepower, 20% more downforce than the GTB, had been announced in April 2025 and gone on sale, while Matt's car sat blocked in the workshop. Here is what Ferrari had done. Taken in order, they sold Matt 296 Challenge components through their own official parts network. They then cut off further supply mid-build, citing chassis compliance on a car whose VIN had already accepted when processing those original orders. The non-compliance they used as grounds to deny him diagnostic help was a direct result of parts that their own network had sold him. Beyond Matt's specific situation, Ferrari had spent years encouraging 296 GTB buyers to treat the car as a strategic allocation vehicle, a purchase that would demonstrate loyalty and keep names active on lists for more exclusive cars to come. That framing carried a financial logic buyers were expected to act on. The used market recorded what happened to that logic. Documented losses in the 6 figures, a 19% value drop in a single year, and a successor model already on sale, while the original buyers were still holding depreciated inventory. The 296 GTB also could not be fully serviced without Ferrari's ongoing cooperation under conditions the buyer was never shown at the point of sale. That reality was not disclosed when the car was purchased. It was discovered by owners who needed that access and found it absent. Legally, none of that is fraud. Ferrari delivered every car it sold, honored the purchase terms, and transferred the titles. Nothing in those transactions crossed the legal threshold for fraud. And Ferrari's legal structure around the 296 GTB was built by people who understood consumer protection law in precise detail. It stopped short of the line. There is a specific word for a transaction where the seller retains control over whether the product continues to function after purchase, where the manufacturer can block independent repair, can make the car non-operational through an internal policy decision, and faces no contractual obligation to the buyer when they do. A transaction where the seller has already released the next version, while the previous buyer's investment deteriorates in a falling used market, waiting for an authorization signal that has not come. That word is leverage, not fraud. Leverage means a manufacturer sets the terms after the sale is complete, and there is no contractual mechanism for the buyer to challenge them. You cannot take Ferrari to court for declining to send a diagnostic signal. You cannot compel them to clear a code. The purchase agreement that transfers